Mishna Dalid, Mishnah number 4 in Perek Dalid, in chapter 4 of Pirkei Avot. In this Mishnah, we're going to be zoning in on the midah, on the character traits of shafel ruach, to be extremely humble. And here we're going to have a phrase that's going to be introduced to us by Rabbi Levitas, Ish Yavne. Rabbi Levitas, he was from Yavne at the time. Omer would say as follows: Me'od me'od have shafel ruach. Be very, very humble. Why? Shetikvat enosh rima. For the hope of mortal man is worms. So what is he trying to teach us here? What does it mean when he says me'od me'od? It seems redundant. Be very, very shafel ruach. Be very, very humble. So to this explanation, we learn, as the Rambam teaches us, in general, when it comes to character traits, one should walk the middle road. One should have a balance between the two extremities. Not to be wasteful on the other hand, for example, and on the other hand, not to be stingy. To be somewhere in the middle, to be generous. So that would be an example of the middle road between two extremes of a character. But when it comes to humility, one should not walk the middle path. He shouldn't be somewhere in between, being pompous and completely low selfish and worthless in his own eyes. But rather, he should be shafel ruach, a little bit more to the extreme side of being over humble, if you will, rather than being, of course, either in the middle or on the side of being pompous. So when it says me'od me'od hafish shafel ruach, he's telling you more than in a regular character trait. You have to be very, very, in other words, turn 2 notches, if you will, towards the sides of being overly humble, rather than being on the side of being pompous. That's one explanation of me'od me'od. The other explanation of this doubling, me'od me'od, is a very interesting explanation, and that is that a person should be humble even from his humility. Meaning what? When a person feels humility, or when he acts in a humble way, he should be humbled by the fact that he's acting in a humble way. He should almost take it as if my actions of humility is a pompousness in and of itself, right? In other words, do you truly believe that you've already reached the level of humility? Do you doubt yourself? Is that humility genuine? Is it sincere? And that humility should double itself, or be squared, to then cause you to be even more humble. Who am I really to consider myself humble? Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, was considered as a humble person. David HaMelech was considered humble. Avram Avinu was considered humble. Am I really that kind of a person? The humility itself that you experience should serve another purpose in creating more humility within you. The third explanation that's given is me'od me'od. Very, very much so you should be humble. Meaning what? You should internalize the humility. In other words, over and beyond actions and the way you speak. It should be internal, both in your thoughts and in your emotions. Me'od me'od havish shafel ruach. It's not enough to be humble in the way you speak and in the way you act, which of course has to be there, but more so, it has to be something that's truly and genuinely internalized in your emotions and in your thought process as well, internally. What does it mean, shetikvat enosh rima, that the hope of a human being is worms? It means as follows: what you truly hope for, the greatness, the reward that you truly hope for, the pleasure even that you truly hope for. Remember that which you truly hope for can only be acquired rima, once you've turned into worms. I mean, in other words, once you've ended your life, once you've gone to the next world. So none of the pleasures that you find in this world, none of the acquisitions that you get in this world, none of that is truly what you're seeking. So anything that you've gained in this world, even including intellect and wisdom and money and everything else, none of that should allow you to become a pompous person, because all of those things are nothing in comparison to what you're truly working towards. What you're truly working towards can only be acquired in Olam Haba. That's one explanation. The other explanation is shetigvat enosh rima. In other words, at the end of the day, remember one thing: your life will end. At the end of the day, remember that your body will decompose. In other words, what are you being so pompous about? If you keep this in mind, then surely you will acquire to be very, very humble indeed. Here we have a phrase that's going to be taught to us by Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka. He's going to be teaching us a little bit about the midah keneged midah, the exacted punishment that's given to a kind of person who desecrates the name of God. And here we go. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer, Kol ha-mechalel shem shamayim beseter, anyone who desecrates the name of God in secret, in private, nifraim mimeno begalui. The reaction to it will be is that he will have to pay for it by being exposed in the open. Echad shogeg v'echad mezid b'chilul Hashem. Doesn't make a difference one who's shogeg or one who's mezid, one who's negligent or one who does it on purpose when it comes to chilul Hashem. That's the literal translation of the Mishnah. There's a lot to be explained in this Mishnah by the commentaries, and to that we'll have to give you a little bit of an introduction. There are two kinds of people that desecrate the name of God. There are two kinds of people that sin. The two categories of people that sin are one who sins because he desires or gains enjoyment from that thing that he's transgressing with. Then you have someone who sins simply to upset God or to declare a disbelief in God or a distrust in God or some sort of spiteful action in that version. The person who sins in category number one does it because of the temptation, the desire that's involved in that transgression, not because he's specifically trying to upset God. This person has two versions of a way he's going to sin. One which desecrates the name of God, and the other one which doesn't really. If a person, for example, just needs to have that cheeseburger, and he, has it ordered, to somewhere and takes it into a private room where nobody's going to see it, and he eats that cheeseburger in private, he's clearly gone to that extent of hiding and keeping it in private because he doesn't want to desecrate the name of God. In other words, it's bad enough already as it is that he's weak. And he recognizes his weakness, the temptation that's involved with that transgression. But he certainly doesn't want to do it in the public, in the open, because by doing that, he knows that that will desecrate the name of God. But say, for example, someone who sins, again, because of the temptation and the desire involved in the transgression, but doesn't care, does it in the open, does it exposed in front of everyone, even though what originated the drive to the sin is a desire and a temptation, not one of spitefulness to God, nonetheless, there's a desecration here involved. You're desecrating the name of God by doing this sin in the open, by showing others your action, letting them learn from your action, by lessening the severity of this transgression, by showing others how you don't care and how you are willing to even do it in the open. The other category of someone who does sin simply because out of spite. We'll go from the worst and then we'll go to the lesser one. The worst kind of sinner of spite that could be is someone who sins out of spite and actually does it in secret. Why is it? Because you are already transgressing out of spite. In other words, you're desecrating the name of God no matter what. That's your whole purpose in doing that transgression. Simply to desecrate the name of God, to dishonor God. But when you do it in secret, what you're saying is that you care more about your own honor than you care about God's honor. You're preserving your own honor. You don't want to sin in the open. You want people to think of you as a righteous person, right? So you hide your sins, and you're doing it out of spite. So it means your action is clearly dishonoring God, but at the same time, you're doing it in secret in order to preserve your own honor. The second kind of person is doing it out of spite and does it in the open. Does it in the open means he's not even protecting his own honor. Because the reality is he is transgressing, and people around him are going to see him transgressing. And as a result, his honor also goes down and is also blemished at the very least in the process of him doing something out of spite and dishonoring God. Our Mishnah that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka is dealing with is talking about somebody who desecrates the name of God, dishonors the name of God, when he sins out of spite in private. He's trying to preserve his own honor, but yet at the same time dishonoring God. The midah keneged midah, the equal punishment, exacted punishment for that kind of person is nifraim mimeno begalui, that he will be exposed. So that other people should realize this person isn't the righteous person you thought he was, but rather he really is a sinner, and he is someone that commits these transgressions. So while he was trying to preserve his honor, the punishment for it, the exacted punishment for it, is that he will be exposed. Echad shogeg, v'chad mezid, v'chul Hashem. And of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is an exact, justified judge, and he will punish accordingly. If it's b'shogeg, if it's a transgression, or if it's mezid, or if it's done on purpose, depending on each one, it'll be calibrated, the punishment will be calibrated accordingly when it comes to chul Hashem, when it comes to desecrating the name of God, which is taken to be something very serious.